Well, it's early February, and it means Super Bowl. For marketing people, Super Bowl. And when we say the Super Bowl, it's not the Super Bowl World Championship, the biggest game of American-style football, the World Championship of American-style football. It's the Super Bowl of advertising. Now, there are other big advertising events. March Madness, every now and then a show like Seinfeld will have its final episode, or one of these sing and gong shows, American Idol, or one of the other sing and gong shows that seem to be so popular these days, which I've never seen. One of those shows has its final episode where they pick the final winner, and everybody talking heads on TV are talking about it, and people like me don't have any idea what they're talking about. I've never even seen the show. So other than those events, though, the Super Bowl is every year. It's at a predictable time. It's the Super Bowl of advertising. The winner of the Super Bowl of advertising, according to the traditional way that we pick the winner, and this goes back to 1989, it's the USA Today Ad Meter Contest. The winner of was an ad by Doritos, and it was an ad that was made by one of the contestants that Doritos used, one of the contestant-made ads that Doritos puts on the Super Bowl, and it was the one where the dog had killed the cat and buried it, and bribed the owner of the cat's husband not to tell anybody by giving him Fritos. And somehow that ad was seen as being very funny and interesting and cute, and won the award. The number 2 ad was also a dog. It was the Volkswagen. The number 2 ad was the Volkswagen's reprise of Darth Vader ad from last year. And of course, there was a lot of hype and a lot of pre-publicity about this. There's also a lot of hype and pre-publicity about the Doritos. They generally have around 6,000 entrants, and this year was no different. The guy who ended up winning got $1 million for having the ad that won. So he's, spent $500 making the ad, I think he said, and ended up with $1 million. It's interesting that it was a Doritos ad that won last year, and then a Doritos ad won not 2 years ago, but 3 years ago. So it's interesting that you have all these, the best minds in advertising, and this is the big advertising event of the year, and all of the creativity that goes into that, and all of these professionals. And 3 out of 4 years, 50, 60-something professional advertising agencies, the best minds in advertising, have been bested by somebody with, a inexpensive camera and, $500 worth of rental equipment, and they've been bested 3 out of 4 years that way by, the Doritos ads. Of course, when you have the best of 6,000 of those, home shot commercials, and you use the best of 6,000, well, maybe that ought to beat the pros, but it is interesting that they bested the pros. The number 3 ad also had a dog, and when I'm talking about who's going to win the who's going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm talking about the traditional contest. It was started by USA Today in 1989, and USA Today's biggest event, their raison d'entrée into the world of information. Because basically all they have are, well, I don't want to say all they have, but most of what you find in USA Today is the AP stuff that you read on the internet the night before. Unfortunately, I'm not real enthusiastic about the future, or optimistic, I'll say, rather than enthusiastic about the future of newspapers, when most of the stuff that's in the newspaper people already knew the night before. You get it better, faster, for free on the internet, so your physical newspaper that people drink with their coffee will become probably like Buggy Whip in the future. And USA Today probably may adjust Gannon Newspapers, who owns USA Today. They may adjust and go to an internet model. They're having a little bit of a struggle. The big newspaper companies across the country trying to figure out how to do their paywalls, and so they're struggling with that and whether to wall everything off and make people pay for it. But then they lose the views, and nobody gets a subscription, and then you have articles that nobody reads, so you can't really get much advertising money for something nobody reads. But if they give it away for free, they don't want to do that because they're used to having people pay for content, so they're struggling with that. But USA Today puts 200-something people, 230 people in a room, and they have what we used to call warmth meter, like a joystick. Think of it as joystick, and they push the meter forward when they are happy or they like the ad, and then they pull it back when they don't like the ad, and it's between 1 and 10, and they score it, and that ad scored an 8.82, and that's the traditional contest. However, the biggest winner in this year's Super Bowl was not any of the advertisers. Advertising was not any of the companies advertised, was not any of the advertising agencies, was not even the NFL, which actually had a great game. The biggest winner this year, even more than the NFL, which had a really great marquee type of game that was close until literally the last play. The guy was a foot away from making a catch. Gronkowski was a foot away from making a catch that they would be talking about for 200 years. Well, they will be talking about as long as they play American-style football, maybe another 30 years anyway, before the regular style of football becomes probably more popular here than American-style football. Maybe all the concussions and stuff like that they'll have to stop playing at some point. But as long as they play American-style football, they would have been talking about that. That would have been the biggest play in the history of the NFL, and he was just a foot away from it. And, of course, I guess the Giants deserved to win, if you think about it, and it was probably better that he didn't catch it. Justice required that he not catch it, but it sure would have been, if you didn't have a dog in the fight and didn't really care. And then also it would have really punished Vegas. Vegas would have lost a ton of money if New England had won by 3. It would have been a great result for the bettors of America, and it's nice once in a while when the big sports books lose money and the bettors win, when things are, of course, always stacked against them. So the big winner, though, Facebook, social media, Twitter, particularly Facebook, and in fact, USA Today this year had a different contest. And if you go to their page, or they talk about who won and whatever, they don't even use the traditional one that every year since 1989 of all the contests and different things that people do. Almost every website, hundreds of websites have a list of the top 10 commercials or number 1 commercials. But the one that's generally recognized as the winner has been that USA Today ad meter panel. And they did away with that, and they had a vote this year. And the vote they did via Facebook. So you had to actually log into your Facebook account. If you go to USA Today's site while you're watching this or want to stop and look at it, go to USA, just Google USA Today Ad Meter 2012, and it'll pop up, and it'll tell you that the winner was Sling Baby, which actually is another Doritos ad. The 2 Doritos ads that were made by regular people and competed against all the different big advertising agencies. So one won one contest and one won the other contest. And it's interesting because it's interesting to look at who won the Facebook ads and then who won the regular contest, which had a kind of general distribution, because Facebook is more people in the demo. Now, of course, advertisers actually care more. They don't care about the average person. They care about the average person in the demo. The demo is that hot group between 18 and 35 that all the advertisers want to go after. Now, we do see more advertising targeting people in the Middle Ages or even elderly people. You see, it's become very, very popular to have direct-to-consumer advertising for prescription medications and other things. Ask your doctor about Xanax. Ask your doctor about this. Ask your doctor about that. Do you have this problem? Ask your doctor about this. And then, of course, at the end, they give all those disclaimers, and it's like 5 miles long. You're going to grow hair hair's going to grow out of your mouth, and you're going to become a homicidal maniac, but you won't have this bladder problem. So a lot of they do have ads targeted old people, but they advertise your typical advertisers that sell the consumer packaged goods, the kind of clothes and cars and other things that we go to the stores and buy, and food and stuff like that we go to stores and buy. Those people like the demo. And I think it's primarily because the typically what people have thought is that once people get to a certain age, they get set in their ways. And they don't really change. You know, people get to be in their 40s and 50s, and this is what everybody thinks. I don't think it's necessarily true. I don't agree with this, but this is what the received view is in marketing and advertising, and that is that people get to a certain age where they get set. You know, they're people. Some of y'all out there, you know, you drive Ford trucks. You've always driven Ford trucks. Or if you're younger, your dad has had a series, you know, every 3 years for a while. And now, recently, every 5 years, he goes out and gets a new Ford truck. He doesn't even go to the Chevy dealership. He doesn't even go to the Chrysler dealership or one of the foreign dealerships. He just goes out and gets another Ford truck. And there are other people that swear by the Dodges or swear by the GM trucks, the Silverados. They swear by those, and that's what they're set in their ways. And they're people that, as they get older, get set in their ways with regard to what kind of food and other clothes and other types of things they buy. So they're not affected by advertising, and it's kind of a waste to try to get them to change habits they've had for many years. But the demo group are not set yet. Their consumer behavior is still evolving. It's emergent, and so we're able to affect them as marketers. We're able to I don't like to use the word manipulate because that brings up the wrong idea, but we're able to shift their behavior in a way that's positive for the products that we're selling. Let's put it that way as opposed to saying manipulate. And so everybody's after the demo. And of course the Facebook ads, the We Go ad, which was the dog, and it's called the We Go. His name is We Go, but on the ad, all you hear him saying is "Here we go." And every time you say "Here we go," he goes and gets a Bud Light for somebody, and even gets it at the end of it, gets a keg and kind of rolls it in for everybody. He's a rescue dog, you know, who rescues everybody by going and getting Bud Light when they're sitting on the couch and too lazy to get up and get it themselves. So that ad was was second. The Chrysler ad was very popular this year. Chrysler was the one that had the Clint Eastwood ad, and it was very popular with everything except really staunch conservatives. And it's interesting, Rush Limbaugh was quoted as saying on his show, said yesterday that he thinks that Clint Eastwood was duped. Somehow when I first saw the ad and I talked it over right after I saw it with a fellow professor of mine, a buddy of mine named Joel Ryman, and he's a strategy guy in management. He's not a marketing person, but he really liked that ad. That was the ad that he thought really was in terms of selling the product and promoting the company, really did a good job. And my only problem with the ad was it didn't show the product. I'm really a big believer in the product being the star of the ad. You know, if you can, I know it's nice to have a nice story, but a really good ad features more product, and it looked like an ad for Detroit. It looked like an ad for America. My students analyze the ads the day after the Super Bowl. The day after the Super Bowl, when we have class, the students analyze the ad. So I sat there, and actually, because we went overtime, the class lasted till 11:30. A class that ends at 9:50. It finally ended up, I was there at 11:30, and the last student was making his presentation, and he was the only one who did this ad, the Chrysler ad, and he was saying that in his opinion, it needed more product. I mean, if he was going to say something to the Chrysler people about what would be better about this ad, it would be better if we saw the product more. And it's also true that I don't know that much about cars. I used to play poker with guys, and in the summertime we'd have fans. I live in the mountainous area of Tennessee, and we'd have fans, and somebody would drive up. We didn't have to use air conditioners. People don't even need to use air conditioners in a lot of areas here of the summer unless it's like really brutally hot. And you have the windows open and fans on. Somebody will drive up, and those guys know who it is by the sound of the engine. I mean, they can tell who it is. That's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. They hear the engine, they know whose car it is. I'm not that kind of person. Maybe there were some shots of the cars, but there was one where you saw the truck logo. But still, for me, if I'm going to spend 3.5 minutes and it was like a 2-minute ad, now I don't know if that means they paid $14 or if you buy a minute or 2 minutes. It wasn't really clear when they talked about the price of the ads. if it was me, I've got to show the product. I mean, if I'm looking at it from the business perspective, and I'm my field is not marketing, not advertising, so I like to look at it from the business perspective, and I'll talk about that throughout the thing. So but the strategy, my strategy colleague said, from a long term, not a tactic. Advertising and hitting the product, and this product's coming out, that's tactics. He said from a strategy standpoint, that imported in America from Detroit is a great slogan, logo. We're in a time when the troops are coming home, and now there's this big push. Why can we have a parade for the team that won the Super Bowl, but nobody's having any parades for the soldiers that are coming home from Iraq? Why don't we have parades? Well, we should have parades for the people coming home from Iraq. Obviously, we didn't do it in Vietnam, and it made a big difference. There were all these the guys came home from World War II in these big old ocean liners, and there were thousands of them get off the boat, and everybody was there, and there were bands playing, and there were girls there to kiss the guys when they got off the boat. And in Vietnam, we didn't do any of that. Nobody recognized those people for the sacrifices that they made and the things that they undertook to, and you can make the argument that we weren't really fighting for the freedom of America in Vietnam, but the guys that fought were. Maybe the generals and the people that started the war, maybe they weren't really doing anything good, but the guys that did the fighting were. And we didn't have any parades for them after the Vietnam War. I guess we ought to do it for the Iraq soldiers. So the Chrysler, I think the issue of patriotism, and when you're down, and our country's been down for several years, and maybe we're just now coming out of that, then people do tend to pull together, and I think that's what Clint Eastwood tried to do. We looked at the ad. It was obvious that they were trying to be non-political. There's one shot we got a bunch of protesters in front of what looks like it's not the White House, but it's supposed to be the White House, very obviously. But then back behind it, they got the Capitol building. So they tried to obviously superimpose the Capitol building over the top of what was supposed to be the White House, and they have all these protesters, and that's where he's saying, we need to come together. There was a shot of what looked like what I would think of as like a talking head on Fox News or perhaps on MSNBC, and it could have been either one. The kind of right-wing news versus the left-wing news. I don't want to say right-wing versus left-wing. The kind of what else? The conservative news versus the progressive news, and you could have been either one. And I think he emphasized that. Now it's time for us all to come together. It's halftime. In America, the thing that upset Rush Limbaugh, and I didn't catch this because I didn't hear about Rush Limbaugh until after we'd had class and my students had talked about it and everything, because I thought the fact that Detroit came back, and it was about Detroit coming back. Detroit was down, Detroit was out, it almost lost everything, it said in the ad, and then all of a sudden now they're coming back. And it was the Obama administration went out on a limb, and they supported a bailout for them and to keep the automobile industry going when they were both GM and Chrysler, and particularly Chrysler was totally dead. GM might have been able to restructure through bankruptcy, but Chrysler was just totally dead and wasn't even worth selling. Nobody would want to buy it and without the bailout. And now they're back, and they're making cars, and sales are up, and they're supposedly doing well. It looks like to me they're still making the same old big gas guzzlers that they want to sell, that give them, I guess, a higher profit margin. They want to sell trucks and minivans and all-road, all-terrain vehicles, which is what kind of got them in trouble anyway. The next time the price of gas goes way up, nobody's going to want to buy those things. And I think if you look realistically at anything, the long run future of gasoline prices, you got to be pessimistic about it staying even or going down. You have to feel like it's got to go up. We have a limited amount of supply. Maybe for a couple of years we might have decent or relatively low gas prices, or at least not hugely expensive gas prices, but in the long run that's just a kind of a pipe dream to think that we can keep gas prices that low and everybody's going to be able to drive these big huge gas guzzlers forever. But that seems like what they were selling. But Chrysler's back. Clint Eastwood, that was the number 3 ad on the Facebook contest for USA Today. It was a little bit lower on the one for where they sit there and do the ad meter live. It wasn't done on the ad meter live because the the traditional context, because technically that was a halftime ad. It was coming out of halftime. Rush Limbaugh was upset because the halftime in America thing, which was the theme of the ad, I think he said it's because we're halfway through the Obama administration, and I didn't think that's what Clint Eastwood meant at all. None of my students, none of us thought that's what upset them. It wasn't the fact that the Democrats had helped Detroit, with bailouts and helped them survive when the Republicans wanted them to let them go under, and it wasn't that upset them, and the reference to coming back from being dead. It was the halftime in America thing, and I think they just honestly, I don't think that ever even occurred to Clint Eastwood. I don't think it ever occurred to Chrysler that anybody would interpret it that way. They were going to show the ad at halftime, and Rush may not have even known that. They were going to show the ad at the end of halftime, and it came on, and they probably got a discounted rate because the halftime and pregame ads obviously are going to be much less expensive than the ads that are during the game. And this was the last ad before the game started. So the announcer came back on and said, "Okay, we'll be back after this commercial break. We'll be back for the second half." And then Clint Eastwood comes on, and that ad kind of took up that whole 2-minute slot and everything. So I think they were going to show the ad at halftime. The teams are going to be coming out for the second half with trying to win the game. It was a 1-point game. And I think that's what they meant with halftime in America. But to Rush Limbaugh, that halftime meant we're halfway through the Obama administration. And, of course, the Republicans or the conservatives think that we're almost, 7/8 through the Obama administration, or 3/4 through. In other words, he's going to be out of here in one more year. He's not going to have another 4 years. We're not just halfway through. So they were really upset about that, and it created a lot of shell. The issue of whether that was asked me. I was on Larry Brogan and Fred McCara's radio show Business Matters, and before the Super Bowl, and they asked me, what about the gender? The Super Bowl, a lot of women watch the Super Bowl. A lot of people are in a party setting. Almost 40% of the viewers are female, and they pay more attention to the ads sometimes than the guys do. Are there going to be ads targeting women? And I said, well, traditionally there have been a lot of ads that do target women, and that's because so many women watch during the Super Bowl, and it's one time, if you're typically advertised on the Super Bowl, on male-oriented shows or sports and other things, this is one time you can make a little bit softer ad that appeals to both men and women, and that's kind of been the tradition. But what has happened the last few years, the last 5 or 6 years, is that it's been become harder and harder and harder and harder to reach males in the demo, young males. Young males are watching much less television, and they're watching even more less, many fewer commercials. In other words, their commercial viewage is much less. They are watching many fewer commercials. Young males a lot of times double track. They do other things, like they mess with their computer and do other things while they're watching television. But it's also true that they tend to flip. And they flip the channel or they DVR. I've been around, like my son-in-law, the way he watches television, it's a couple minutes of this and a couple minutes of that. And I've talked with my students about this, and young males are almost all universally channel flippers. It's very rare to have a young man say, "No, I never flip the channels. I don't sit there with the remote and flip the channels every time a commercial." That's unusual. And of course, the female students all talk about how frustrating it is to do TV. People don't watch TV, they kind of do it. And for males, when they do TV, and they're doing much less of it because they're messing around on the computer, also playing computer games, video games, and stuff like that, much more so than they are watching television. They're much more likely to sit there for hours and play one of the Blizzard, the Blizzard massive mud games, the massive peer-to-peer online games that they do, or some other types of games, or they're doing their Xboxes or their Wiis or whatever. They're playing those types of games and doing computer and watching much less television. It's hard to find young males. So if you have a product that you need to advertise to young males, it's very hard to find them. Because they just don't watch much television. When they do watch television, they don't watch commercials. Now, I have been predicting for years, I've been telling my students for years, at some point we may see this whole, the commercial structure that has been in place for 60 years, basically since television started. We've had pretty much the same commercial structure. You have a 30-minute show, you watch 8 minutes of commercials. You have an hour show, it's 42 to 44 minutes for an hour show, and you have 16 to 18 minutes of commercials. Check this out, you DVR something, you see an hour show's 42 minutes. That's 18 minutes out of your life that you saved every time you DVR a show instead of watching it yourself. At some point, that structure is going to break down, in my opinion, and companies are going to have to go to embeds. What'll happen is that one company, and it may be it may be one of the smaller networks, maybe Fox or one of the smaller networks, or it may be one of the strong cable presences on television, is going to go to embeds. And they're going to go one night, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to have a 30-minute show, we're not going to have any commercials, and we're going to just stick with embeds. And the reason for that is that people are flipping the channel. And if somebody flips the channel, not only do you lose the viewership for the commercials, like in other words, people are paying for commercials that they think the people watching the program are watching, but they're not watching. And then the person flipping the channel goes to something else and they forget about the channel they were watching. I mean, my son-in-law, he flips the channel. We watch this show, and then, he goes to another show at the commercial, forgets about the first show, may come back to that 10 minutes later, right as they're fixing to go into another commercial break. Then he flips around to another show, and we see in a 30 minutes, we may see 2 minutes of this, 4 minutes of this, 4 minutes of this show, 4 minutes of this show, and no commercials for more than 2 seconds. 5 seconds, and only if he's distracted and not flipping the channel. And he wonders why I grab a book and go read. But I think we're coming to the point, of course, I flip the channel too a little bit when I'm at home, and I'm sure it drives my wife crazy. We may be coming to the point where we need a TV for everybody. Like people will have like 3 or 4 TVs in the living room and sit there with earphones or something like that. We may be coming to that, but I really think that what is going to happen is that somebody's going to go to embeds, and they're not going to have commercials, and then they're not going to lose their audience. People are going to sit there through the whole 30 minutes, and they're just, if it's like a soccer game and you got logos brought to you by Snickers or Mars or whatever, Bud Light or whatever kind of InBev wants to advertise for that show, that's what they're going to go with. And once somebody does that, everybody else is going to have to do it, because who's going to sit there and watch a show that's got 22 minutes of content when you got another show that's got 30 minutes of content, but it's got advertisements embedded in it. And there's issues. I think the writers of shows would like to get some of the copywriting money that goes for advertising. I mean, if they got to write in embedded products, they need to get paid for that. So there's issues with the contracts with the writers and stuff like that. But I've been saying for years that the current structure is going to break down, particularly for shows that appeal to young people. I think if you're talking about shows that appeal to older people, people my age, the same structure, they may use the same structure, but it's coming. They already do a lot of embedding, but they embed and they have the commercials. It's like extra money. We'll embed this. We'll have somebody drink Sam's purified bottled water. We'll have somebody drink that, and we'll have somebody eat Cheetos, Frito-Lay type of a chip, and then we'll also have 18 minutes of advertising every hour. And they want to get, somebody's going to go and say, look, let's just try to replace the money we get for the ads with embeds. And then there's not going to be any more ads. And then they'll keep their audience. You'll have more people watching. A network can have lead-ins. In other words, if you had that set up for the whole night, the temptation to just stay on that same network, because you would never have the commercial come on that you would normally. That would be the time when you would flip when people are almost operantly conditioned or classically conditioned to, not operant condition, but classical condition, to flip the channel when the commercial comes on. For some people, it's almost like a ring a bell, and for Pavlov, he'd ring a bell and the dogs would would salivate. And for a lot of people, the commercial comes on, it's like ringing a bell. I need to flip the channel. And I wonder, I guess as long as the companies are going to pay for the ads, then they're going to keep doing it. This current model will stay. But as soon as a few of the big companies say, no, we'd rather go embed. If you're offering us an embed, we'd rather go that way than traditional advertising. And if I was as a marketer, I wonder who's paying all this money. Now, the Super Bowl is a little bit different because people are there to watch the ads. And I think that's why it gets $3.5 million or 30 seconds, because people actually watch the ads. They go to the bathroom during the game so they don't miss any ads. I did that because I'm a marketing professor and my students are going to be making presentations about the ads. So I wanted to see all the ads live in real time. And it was really hard for me to get used to it. I did reach for the remote a couple times when ads came on and then realized, no, wait, I need to watch the advertisement. Okay, let's go. I'm going to go over a few more commercials and talk about them. I highly encourage you to email us and give your opinions. We got the email graphic for Shemwell and Shemwell is up, and we'll definitely get to your email if we can. If you will put on your email that you would like to be recognized, I will recognize you. If you would rather be anonymous and say something anonymous, you can be anonymous. Unless you say it's okay to recognize me or to use my name or to acknowledge my name as the person that made this comment. Unless you say that specifically, I'm just going to say somebody wrote in and said. So if you, but I highly encourage you, because I'm giving my opinions here. It's pretty obvious it's my opinions. And I have many years of watching these things and having students analyze the ads and reading and studying about them. So it's an educated opinion. That doesn't mean I'm right. And I really would like to hear things that are different. I'll give you one example of how different people can look at it. There is the website, the superbowl.com or superbowl.org. If you Google Super Bowl ads, it comes up in one of the top 10. And they had a guy there that put the 10 best and the 10 worst. He had the 10 best and the 10 worst ads. And one of the 10 worst ads that he said, 10 best and 5 worst ads. One of the 5 worst ads was H&M's ad with David Beckham. And David Beckham's sitting there and he said, this has got to be the worst ad ever. I mean, you have all these, any guy that's straight does not want to sit there and look at David Beckham in his underwear for a minute, 30 seconds, however long the ad was. We don't want to see that, and it's not appropriate. And I mean, that guy, absolutely, you got to read the comments. Look down below that and read under the 5 worst ads and read. He got absolutely lambasted. Many women really liked the David Beckham ad, and they put up with all these ads with sexual innuendo. The Teleflora ad, "Given You Shall Receive," these supermodels that have these kind of unattainable beauty by ordinary females and represent the male an unrealistic male ideal of the perfect female. And I think that actress was Adriana Lima from and I kept thinking she was from Peru, but that's another actress from Brazil. And she was in 2 ads during the Super Bowl representing the ideal female for males. And they watch a lot of that. In years past, we had the Swedish bikini team and all of these ads that are designed to appeal to the prurient interest of males. And then one time there's David Beckham in his underwear and guys go nuts. And many of the women on there really like the ad. David Beckham is a great football player. He plays for the LA Galaxy. He recently, a lot of the European teams wanted him. He's still a star. He's still in good shape. He still hustles and plays defense. He's a real true team player. He doesn't score a lot of goals, but he assists on a lot of goals. And he's a real team player for the game. And they won the championship MLS Cup, and they won I want to say this right. They won the Supporter Shield, which goes to the team with the best record. That's the way European teams recognize who the best football team in America is, the LA Galaxy. So he, I hope it is the LA Galaxy, isn't it? Well, anyway, but David Beckham's ad, a lot of the women liked it, and there are a lot of women watching the Super Bowl, and women do pay more attention to the ads. A couple of people pointed out gay males. There was a guy there that said he was gay, and he was watching with a bunch of other gay males, and they really thought it was great to have an ad like that, and how much they appreciated that being put on there. And the other thing, and the one thing the guy said, what kind of, I don't, how is, are heterosexual males going to go out and buy that underwear because they see David Beckham? No, but a lot of us don't buy our own underwear. And the guy that wrote that probably is doesn't even have a girlfriend. He's not married and doesn't have a girlfriend, and he's writing for Super Bowl or he's unattributed. He didn't put his name on it. He refused to put his name on it. If you're going to do something like that, put your name on it. Like I say stupid stuff here, y'all can lambaste me in emails, and I'll acknowledge it, and I take chances, and I say things that I give my opinions, and might be different from other people's, and I take chances. If you're going to take a chance and rate by yourself the top 10 and the 5 worst Super Bowl ads, put your name on the article. And he didn't do that, so it had to be a male. I mean, I think everybody realized it had to be a male. But a lot of women buy underwear for the male in their life, and particularly if you've been with a male for a certain amount of time. You know what kind of underwear he likes. You go shopping a lot, and my wife, a lot of times when she goes shopping, she buys stuff for me. I don't know if she feels guilty or she loves me. Really, it's just an expression of love, or if it just doesn't feel guilty, she's shopping, she buys a few things for herself. So she goes and buys stuff for me. And so a lot of women, they see David Beckham, God, he looks good. Would my husband look that good? Now, not, just like the supermodel, typical supermodel has to be at least 185 centimeters tall and weigh under 50 kilograms. How many women can reach that? I mean, how many women can be 185 centimeters tall, 5'10" or taller? Really, 6 feet is probably more accurate, which would be, 185 is about 6 feet. 180, I think 180 is actually the minimum, the typical minimum for a runway model, although they like them to be 185. And then how can you be that tall and then weigh under 50 kilograms? 110 pounds. Under 110 pounds would be almost 6 feet tall. How many people can reach that? How many women can reach that status? Not very many. And how many guys can be David Beckham, can be almost, in your mid-30s or late 30s and still be in as good a shape as him? Not many American guys in their mid to late 30s are in nearly as good a shape as David Beckham is. And they certainly can't play football like he can. He's, one of the best players in the world, European, American, anywhere. And I think some of the American stars have shown that some of our guys can play football with anybody. So the David, I want to talk about the David Beckham ad. People didn't like it. People were upset, but still it got the result that people wanted. I think people that result that wanted in terms of their target market, which was the woman who buys the underwear for the guy in their life, and then maybe a secondary market of metrosexuals and gay males that they were going after. Samsung Mobile had a big, huge, I'm going to talk about some of the ones that didn't work so well. Samsung Mobile had a big, huge mega ad. And they're coming out with the new Samsung Note. And they're fighting very hard, head-to-head, mano-a-mano with Apple. And Samsung had I guess when the new version, their 4G phone kind of outperformed the 4G phone of Apple, and now people are waiting for the 5G phone, Apple's 5G phone, and then Samsung is trying to beat them with that. And they had a really big mega ad that must have taken a huge amount of time to make. They had a lot of B-level celebrities in there that I didn't even recognize until my students broke down the ad. I didn't know the bald guy was Brian Urlacher, the big old guy that was giving out his signature, his autograph. I didn't know that was Brian Urlacher. I didn't know the guy in the pink pajamas with the stuff strapped all over him. That's some kind of big rock star that's making a big revival this year. And there were 3 or 4 other celebrities in the ad, and it was filmed in 3 different cities, and they had a lot of computer graphics. And at one point in there, they had motocross jumping in the background, people I forget what they call it, sling lining, riding the little sling line across the thing. And 2 or 3 other things, a guy shooting out of a cannon, all happening at one time. It was a real mega ad, and they obviously did a lot of computer graphics to get the three cities to meld together and to get everything to come together. And they really thought they had a big hit. But honestly, if your number one huge new innovation is a stylus, a little pen to write, do you really need? I don't really need to write on my iPhone or my PDA. I mean, that's like 10, 12 years ago. If the stylus that's supposed to be really cool, if that's supposed to be the new cool thing that's going to sell that, they have failed. I don't know why they thought that it would be so cool to have that little thing, because that's like 10, 12 years ago. So once they had that in the ad, and it was obviously the star of the product, that was if you're going to use that, now if they had used the screen resolution, and they did have a few things where they showed the screen resolution, the screen resolution had pictures of people with their mouths open, and showing the shot, and you could hardly tell that it was a camera shot. They had the camera right in front of their mouth and everything. So if the screen resolution and some of the other things that Samsung is able, Samsung is the way they would say it in Korea, Samsung is able to do better than Apple is able to do. If they had hit that would have been great. But by trying to say that the big new innovation is the stylus, the little plastic pen, they blew it there. And that ad was poorly rated. It came on during a weird time. I was kind of weird to me that it was so poorly rated, because I thought in terms of being funny and cute, it was good. And it was, in movies, if you were thinking about movies, that would have been an epic. They were trying to have an epic ad, something that would be in the top. I really believe that the ad agency that made that thought they were coming out with an ad that was going to be in the top 10 of all time. It was going to be like Apple in 1984 throwing the implement. All of a sudden, I can't remember the name of the implement. It happens to you when you talk extraneously in front of the camera. Throwing the sledgehammer through the 1984 propaganda screen. And they thought they were doing that. I mean, because that probably was the most expensive ad of the day, had to be hugely expensive, and a huge, big production thing. And for it to rate so low, I know they have to be disappointed. And then also, the product, but if you're the ad agency, I don't really blame the ad agency, because it's not their fault that Samsung thought that the great new innovation of their Samsung Note was the stylus. If that's your great new innovation, you need to go back to the drawing board. You need to have some people that know a little bit about Western culture come to Suwon, and you need to invite a few people. I've got somebody, if anybody from Samsung's watching this, I've got a colleague that will be perfect for talking about social media and the new American culture. I've got a colleague that's an expert in that. I'd be happy to recommend that you fly her over to Suwon and talk to her a little bit before you do the 5G version, because the stylus is not going to get it. The Seinfeld commercial, getting the new act, I really was impressed with this ad, primarily because the car is not even available yet. And I think if there's one thing when we look at American business and American business practices that we need to do better, it's being farsighted. Our business, there's just too much, and if you watch CNBC, turn CNBC on for a few minutes, it's what's going to happen the next week. What's the market going to do the next week, the next month, the next 3 months? Honestly, the stock market, if you say the stock market now is at 11.8, say, is the market 5 years from now more likely to be at 11.8 at 23.6? In other words, is the market more likely to double in 5 years, or is it more likely to go to zero? I think you say it's more likely to go to double. Is the market more likely to go up to 16,000 from 11.8, or is it more likely to go down to 7,600? 5 years from now, I think you'd say it's way more likely to go up to 16,000. The Dow's more likely to go to 16,000 when it's at 11.8 now. And so if you think about that, almost any type of going up 50%, going up 100%, going up 200%, it's much more likely to go up over the next 10 years than it is to go way up than it is to go way down. If you think that, what difference does it make if you're a long-term investor, unless you're one of these people that tries to day trade, which is about like playing a slot machine or shooting craps in Vegas, in my opinion, unless you have inside information, in which case you're either breaking the law or you're shooting craps. Day traders are. But if you think about, if that's the case, if the market's going to go way up, why worry about what's going to happen the next month? I mean, who cares if it's going to go up or down the next month if it's going to go up in the long run? And the market's much more likely to go up in the long run. And I think we're in a situation you'd have to say, almost even Nouriel Roubini, if I ask him what's the probability of the market go up 50% versus down 50%. And in 5 years from now, and which is more likely? Even Nouriel Roubini, Dr. Doom, would say it's more likely to go up 50. It's more likely to be up 20% 5 years from now, or more likely down 20%. Even then, I think he'd say up. 100% versus down 100, down to zero. Obviously, it's more likely to be up. If that's the case, who cares what happens in the next few weeks? But American business, I think they're always focused on the next quarterly result. They've got analysts that have expectations. The expectations you make, you have a certain gross profit margin, that you keep all your other metrics, your inventory turnover rate, your gross profit margin, you keep all that good. But then it's the profit per share. So if they're expecting a profit per share of 52 cents and you have a profit of 50 cents per share one quarter, your stock goes way down and everybody's disappointed in you. And the CEO, there's a tendency to make the number. I think that's why so many CEOs have gone to jail for fudging the numbers and making stuff up because they felt like they had to meet the expectations of the analysts. And the next quarter, there's too much focus on the next quarter. The Acura NSX, I think it's called, that's coming out. It's not even coming out till 2015. It's a concept car now. So here you have a Japanese company that is investing millions of dollars to make this ad for a car. And not only the millions of dollars for the spot, but you got to pay for Seinfeld and Leno. And I'm telling you, those guys don't come cheap. Also, they're the perfect people for the concept because they're both big, huge car collectors. You could actually see Seinfeld and Leno bribing somebody to get the first NXX for their, showroom, because they're both huge car people and they talk about it and everybody knows it's a big thing about there. I think it's either Seinfeld or Leno, my student was saying, has like 74 Porsches. So getting the first NSX, you could see them going out and trying to bribe an ordinary Joe to get the first NSX. I was really impressed with Acura just because it's 3 years down the road that they're going to even make the car. We're not even sure what it's going to look like. So what they showed us with the car, and I'm impressed when companies try, and I think this is what the strategy guy was talking about with Chrysler also. When companies just think strategic instead of tactics, trying to sell as many of this model's cars right away versus trying to build it for the future. And I think Acura is trying to build for future. Samsung, in like 2008 or 2009, Samsung announced that they were going to spend, and I'm translating the Korean won to dollar is a little bit problematic because it's changed so much, but they were going to invest for the next 20 years. They laid out their investment strategy where they're going to invest billions of dollars per year for the next 20 years on research and development. And they announced that in the middle early 2009 or late 2008, in the middle of the world financial crisis. Samsung sets up and says, we're going to, this is our plan for investment for the next 20 years. Obviously, they've been working on it. They didn't care that there was a recession or whatever. They were going to invest money in R&D. They were thinking to the future. How many American companies announce a 20-year R&D investment plan? Or say we're going to invest. I've listened to a lot of analyst briefings. I've never heard anybody say we've already laid out our R&D investment strategy for the next few years. And then if you look at who comes up with the new innovative products, what company is winning out in the technology battle, and Samsung's one of the clear winners in the technology battle. I don't care what field it is. You go to Lowe's, you see a Samsung refrigerator. You go to Best Buy, you see Samsung 4G phones. Even if you see a brand that's not a Samsung, it's got Samsung stuff in it. So I was very impressed with Acura and going out and investing the money. Now the ad wasn't really highly rated and it didn't win any awards, but I think for car people that are interested, this is a car that's going to cost $140,000. So it's a kind of niche market. Maybe the Super Bowl wasn't the best place to show it. Maybe some other venue would have been a little bit better to show it, but I thought they really accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. I want to talk about Budweiser and InBev. I'll finish up by talking about a little bit about Budweiser and InBev. Budweiser, not going to finish up with that. I got one more thing after that I'm going to talk about. Budweiser was the king of Super Bowl advertising for many years. Pepsi won from 1994 to 1998. Pepsi won like 5 years in a row. Remember the little baby in the bottle? That was Pepsi ad that won 1 year. Hidden camera. It's when the Coke truck driver stops and he's looking around, trying to see if anybody notices him, and he reaches in a cooler, a little cooler type refrigerator, and tries to sneak out a Coke. A Pepsi to drink. The Coke driver tries to sneak out a Pepsi to drink, and all the Pepsis come pouring out of the thing. Those ads, 5 years in a row they won. But then from 99 for the next 10, starting in 1999 for the next 10 years, Budweiser, or one of their brands, Bud Light or Budweiser, I think primarily Bud Light, they won for like the next 10 years, 9 times out of 10. And it was not uncommon, even up until 2 years ago, it was not uncommon for them to have 4 of the top 5 of the top 10, 3 of the top 5. They, always had the best and funniest ads. Now, when they were bought by InBev, and I talked about this last year when I was on Business Matters talking about Super Bowl last year, I said, they bought half as many spots they usually buy. And of course, since they buy an NFL package, they get a certain number of ads designated to them because they're it's part of their whole package for the whole year for the NFL. So they've got to use a certain number of ads. They didn't buy any extra spot ads. They didn't put a lot of money into spot ads. And so when InBev's ads came out, they weren't that funny, and they were not very highly rated. This year, the WeGo ad did pretty well in terms of the traditional contest for what's the cutest, funniest ad people like the most. The dog WeGo. Other than that, the next one is like 15th or 16th. Depending on which one you look at, 15 or 16, it's was number 2 on the Facebook. The WeGo ad was, and it was number 7. It's unheard of for the best Budweiser ad to be 7th, and then the next best Budweiser ad to be like 20th or something. That's really unheard of. That they just have one ad in the top 20, totally unheard of. The Prohibition ad was panned, didn't do very well. People didn't really like that ad very much. I think they were trying to be nostalgic with that, and it didn't really. It's too old. If you want to be nostalgic, go back to the 70s, not the 20s. Nobody here was alive. Not many people were even alive that are around today, or were even alive in the 20s. So, but when I looked at the InBev ads, I actually, and this is just my opinion, and I nobody else agrees with this, I actually thought the InBev ads were pretty good. They came up with this new Platinum. It seemed like every year they've got something new, and many of you are kind of wondering, why did they, first there was a Bud Dry, then there was like a Bud Ice, they had lime Bud, Bud with lime in it, and they've had, all the, or Bud or Bud Light with lime in it, and they have what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Is that necessary? And honestly, the reason is that it gets them shelf space. And what they really want to do is crowd out the microbrews. In other words, you go to the store, the stores were built many years ago in many cases, even the Walmart's built 10 years ago. They've got a limited amount of space for beer in the cold section. And most beer is bought cold. And if Anheuser-Busch can have all these different brands and all these new things, advertise them, tell people we got this big promotion. Retailers love advertising. If Anheuser-Busch goes, we got this big promotion, well, you got to give us shelf space. What they're doing is they take more and more and more and more of the shelf space, and then there's less and less room for the microbrews. And that's really what they want to do. I think that's what's going on. Now, I might be wrong. It could be that this Bud Platinum with the silly blue bottle, that may the blue bottle may turn out to be the hottest thing. I know one of the wineries here has a wine in a blue bottle. Chateau Morissette has a wine in a blue bottle they call Our Dog Blue, and that's one of last time I've been a few years since I've been there now, but at the time that I went, that was their biggest seller. So maybe that blue bottle is really going to be the new cool thing, and that Bud Platinum. One of my students said he was at a party and they watching the ad, and then he went to the refrigerator and somebody handed him a Bud Platinum. They'd already gotten it. The blue bottle had drawn them. So maybe that's their new thing. They're gonna, the Bud Platinum is going to be a hot new thing it's going to be the Michelob of the future. I don't know, but the ad, I like the ads. They really were good. They didn't even try to be funny. The Budweiser ads did not even try to be funny. They did not, the Platinum ads in particular, now not the WeGo ads, but the InBev ads for their new beer, Bud Platinum, they did not even try to be funny. They did not even attempt to win the ad competition. And I think if you think for a company and you're trying to sell products and your goal, your charge in life is to sell products at a profit so that you can maximize the value for your shareholders, and that's kind of your official charge. I know you want to take care of your employees and other stuff, other constituents as well, but that's your charge in life. A lot of what Budweiser did over the last 30 years might be considered hubris. I mean, to go out and try to win these contests so that you can say, we won the contest, we're the best advertiser. Well, being the best advertiser may not translate into the biggest profit. Now, Budweiser is the king of beers. They have the biggest market share. Never been a really profitable company, and that's why InBev was able to buy them really for a song and a dance. And they obviously didn't even care about winning the contest. And I think that was true of many of the ads. As a marketing person, I was actually more impressed with the ads this year than I have any time in the last 5 years. Anytime, really maybe in the last 10 years, since the new .com ads came out, the Monster ads and the new .com ads came out in 1999, 2000. This is the most impressed I've been because I think most of the companies actually were doing something besides being cute and funny. And it may be, I think for a lot of people, that maybe they'll say, well, the ads weren't as entertaining. That's true. Maybe the ads were not as entertaining this year as they have been in past years. But in terms of from a business standpoint, I thought many of the companies were successful at what they were trying to do. Finally, I want to talk about Ferris Bueller, the Honda ad for the CRV, Ferris Bueller Day Off Reprise, where the actor Matthew McConaughey, I believe is his name, Matthew Broderick, who played Ferris Bueller. That's a movie that a lot of us grew up with. It's hard to imagine that movie is now, it's an iconic movie. Everybody has heard about it. Many people, maybe even young people, have seen it played as replay on television. Obviously, though, young people, it's not an iconic movie. They did not like it. There was a huge difference. One of the biggest differences between what the people who did Facebook and their rating of the ads, and they had that ad down like, 18th. I'm looking here, and I had it just a second, maybe even lower than that. Honda. Never mind. I want to say 16th. They had it like 16th, whereas the young people had it way, way, way down. Whereas the older people, the Facebook panel had it 7th, and the USA Today panel had it 16th. So the Facebook 16, the older people, the traditional type of contest that USA Today has run since 1989, they had it like 7th. And so there was one of the top 10 and one, but it was way down below that. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I saw a preview ad for that was about 2.5 minutes long, but they actually ran a 1-minute ad, I think, on the day of the Super Bowl, so they only ran 1 minute of that. And so the Ferris Bueller Day Off, the Ferris Bueller Day Off ad, I really thought that would be a big hit. It brought back memories of that great movie and all the things that happened in the movie, and it was a good reprise of that. Obviously, the young people have never heard of that. They don't know. So it didn't work because it wasn't a demo. Now, one of my students pointed out, and this is really surprising me, the average age of the car buyer 4 years ago was 52. and now it's 56. Maybe Honda didn't care what the Facebook people thought. They cared more what people my age thought of the ad, and I really liked the ad. They showed the car so many times. I mean, it was a lot. The car, it was Matthew Broderick was in it, but the car was the star. If you watch it carefully, break it down, look at little clips, 5 seconds by 5 seconds, 10 seconds by 10 seconds, you see the car as the star. You see the car early on, it's mentioned right away. You see it early on, it's shown, in that stylistic, artistic light. And there's other people driving it, and it was really, really a good ad. That it was a good, funny ad that starred the product. And I'm a real big fan of having the product be the star, not the story. I know you want to have an interesting storyline so people won't flip the channel. That's good, but I still like to have the product be the star. Finally, the big winner in this was Facebook. Facebook won the day. As so many companies wanted to have, like 68% of the companies had either Twitter or Facebook hashtags or some kind of link. Many companies, encourage you to go to their Facebook site and interact with that. And a lot of people did after they saw the ad. They went to the Facebook site, and then they could play an extended version of the ad or a continued version. GoDaddy and some of the ads that try to be more risque tried to encourage you to go and look to either their website or to go to Facebook and to look at an extended version of their ad. They encourage you to put that you liked. It was one of the things that you liked on your Facebook page. And so, I think 31% of the Facebook users who watched the Super Bowl posted an ad that they indicated that they didn't post, indicated that they were going to, some kind of survey, they indicated they were going to post ads that they liked on their Facebook page under that like column on the Facebook page. Facebook is going to IPO soon. I'll be back here shortly, soon. I'll be looking for another podcast where I talk about the Facebook IPO, where I talk about the new media, not just that, but search engines and the kind of new media concepts and where we're going in the future. So look for that. In the meantime, email us with your opinions on the commercials and where you thought something much different than what I thought. I'm particularly interested to do that, and I'm not Bill O'Reilly. I actually like it when somebody points out that I made an error or that their opinion is very different from mine and they think that I was wrong. And if you would like for me to recognize you, I will. If you don't want to be recognized, I'll just say somebody sent me an email and said this is very interesting. Have a nice day.